Okay, so I went ahead and decided to do the part 2 to the boot video and finish showing you how to make this, since the other video that we did on Skype was halfway decent, but I think it'll be easier to follow if I just continue with what I was already doing. So I went ahead and I finished the boots, but I'll go ahead and walk you through what I did. So here is the bottom part of the boot. I think this is where I left off. I might have added a few more seams to it here. As you can see, it looks pretty good. I changed the seam down on by the toe. I think I just need to fix it a little bit and move it down so that it doesn't show the tongue through the bottom of it. But other than that, I went ahead and I changed. What did I change? Oh, I did the lace up. So I'm going to show you how I did that, because here how this is what it ended up looking like when I finished it. And how I did this was I'm going to make a new layer here, get my pen tool. I'm going to use the regular pen tool instead of the curvature pen tool. And all I did was I started up here, and I just went and I clicked all the way back and forth. Now when I do this, I want to make sure, well, I'll show you when I get down to the bottom and I finish doing the clicking here. I'll show you what we have to do after that. Now I'm going to do the top one up here. Oops, let's see. I'm going to continue as though there's another grommet up here, so that when I put the two layers, the top part of the boot and the bottom part of the boot, the lace-ups will match and there will be no break in it. So I'm going to go ahead and go up like this. Then I'm going to go straight across and then go back down and close it. Okay, now I'm going to zoom in. We want to make sure that these little anchors are right in the center of each grommet. So with this normal pen tool, you have to hold control, click so that all of these anchors highlight. Then while you have control held down, move the anchor into place where you want it. We have to do this one too. Okay, just make sure that they're all right in the center of the grommet. I'm not going to do all of them here because it'll take forever. I will just put a couple more of these in place, and then I will go ahead and stroke the path, and then I'll show you how it turned out when it's all done. Okay, that's all I'm going to do for there. Make sure that this top one is the same distance up here to this one as it is from here to here, so that when we combine the two, it'll match. It'll match up, and you won't have any it won't be noticeable that there is an actual break in the boot from top to bottom. So now I'm going to right click. Oops, I need black. I need to make sure my brush is the right size and a hard edge. So I'm going to make the brush size about a 4. Okay, make sure the flow and opacity are turned up. Go back to the pen, right click, and stroke path. Okay, what's going on? Let's see, why is it not showing it? I think it's at the top. Oh no, yeah, it is at the top. Huh. Oh, I see what's going on. Okay. I didn't turn off the shape dynamics. I need to do that first. Uncheck shape dynamics. Then do the stroke path again. Stroke path. There we go. Okay, now I'm going to do it one more time. And right click this time and delete path. Okay, so we could see that the lace up looks pretty good. Now I'm going to double click on that layer and turn on my bevel and emboss. And you can stop the video here and look at these settings and use these same settings. So that's what I would suggest you do, so that you can get some kind of a texture on your lace up, and it'll look more like a string instead of just blackness. So I'm going to also add a drop shadow, just a little one. Also, if you want, you can stop video and look at the settings here and make your settings the same. Once I do that, go ahead and hit OK. And that is the lace up for the bottom part of the boot. Okay, so I'm going to turn mine on here. And now that that part's done, I'm going to close up the bottom part of the boot and open the top part. So many layers. Okay, I'm going to turn this one off. Go up here. And here is the way the boot looked the last time on the last video. This is what the top looked like. So you're gonna do the same exact thing that we did on the bottom for the top lace up. But instead of going up higher here, you're just gonna close it out up here. So we're gonna start it about here, right about here, and then go up like this and go all the way up. When you get to the top, you're gonna go here to here, and then go back down, and then close it out down here. Once you do, you're going to do the same thing, right click and stroke path. This time your brush and everything will still be set up. Double click the layer and your bevel and emboss will be set up because you will have had it on the other lace up. If you do not have the settings saved, even though it should be saved, simply go down to the bottom part of the boot. Let me get rid of the pen tool here. Go down to the bottom part of the boot, go to the lace up that we just did, and right click it and copy layer style. Then go to the top lace up that we just did and paste layer style onto that lace up. And it'll paste it for you. Let me see, here's this. There's the top part of the lace ups. Alright. Oops. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and show you how the boot is looking in game right now, finished. This is what it ended up looking like. Well, it's not finished. I have to do the heel still, but the top part of the boot's done. It looks pretty good. There's no breaks. You can't really see any difference between the top and the bottom, even though they're separate pieces. There's a little bit right here that's different, but it can't be absolutely perfect. Honestly, this is pretty good, considering we just really eyeballed it. Alright, so there's how the lace-ups end up looking. They look good. So now if you noticed, I changed the lace up here. I think it looks a lot better. I will go ahead and load that up in Photoshop. So let's see. Where is it? Okay, here's the top lace. Here's the layer of top lace. Now what I did here is I added a solid rectangle right here to get rid of all that top part. It really isn't necessary, but when you do the lace, I didn't want the lines here behind it or these lines behind it. Even though there's an opacity map, I didn't want to have any remnants of it showing, so I added this to make it cleaner. And then I went ahead and I added the lace straight across, and then I added a line between these seams up here and the lace right up here. And above that layer I added a highlight layer. And I used color dodge, double click, uncheck, transparency shape layer, and then put your white line on top of this line, the black line right here. So that is how I did the top. And then what else did I do? I added the highlights, which are right here. Now with highlights, all I did was, let's see, I added, okay, you're going to make the layers first. Here, let me just go ahead and turn these off. I'm going to make a new layer and show you exactly how I did it. First, I made a new layer, changed it to color dodge, double click, uncheck transparency shape, okay, get my white brush, change the color to white, make my brush bigger, right about there, and put a dot. There's one. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use filter, blur, Gaussian blur. Okay, hit OK. Then I'm going to Control T, and I'm going to hold my shift and drag it down. Drag it up. Stretch it out just a bit. Hit enter, and I'm going to lower the opacity to about 50, 40, 30. Yeah, there we go, 30. Now I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to copy that layer. Oops, hit enter. I'm going to copy this layer by holding Alt and using my left arrow. Actually, you have to hit the letter V as in Victor first to get your move tool. Then hold Alt and arrow. Then move it over to the other side using my arrow key. Okay, there's that side. Now I'm going to make another new layer. Color dodge, double click, uncheck, okay. Brush, white, hard edged. I'm going to make it bigger this time. This is going to be for the calf right here. So I'm going to make it right about here. I'm going to go to filter, blur, Gaussian blur. Control T it. Just squish it down. And I'm going to put this over onto the edge right in the center of it, because this has to match up in back on both sides. This side and this side. When they fold together behind the boot, you want these to have a smooth seam between it. You don't want it to have any seam really. And that's about where the calf is going to be on the back of the boot. So it's about the same height as this here. I'm going to hit OK, and then I'm going to hit V as in Victor, hold Alt, and drag, use my arrow key to the left, and then use my arrow key to move this over. And again, you want it right down the center. That looks about right. Okay. Now that's going to be the top part of the boot, the back side of the top part of the boot. Now when I put this into game, you won't see, if you did it right, you will not see a seam between the two. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how it looks. There's no seam between the two. I lightened up that layer a bit with the opacity. I went to, I think, probably 30 as well. Yeah, for both those layers I went 30% opacity. Now those are the highlights for the top part of the boot. Now I'm going to simply do the bottom part by copying those 4 layers and flipping them upside down. So first of all, we want to get to our crop tool over here and hit enter and then enter again. Now go to the move tool and select these 4 layers here and put them in a group. Okay, now make a copy with Control J, and now we're going to drag this layer down to the bottom boot. Okay, there's the bottom boot right there. Okay, and now I'm going to close the top boot, turn it off, and now the bottom boot is on. Now we want to open this up, and there are the highlights. Now we want to select that layer, Control T, right click, flip vertical. Then use your arrow keys and move it all the way up to the edge. But don't go over or under. You want it to be right at the top line. That way it doesn't overlap and cause a line in between the two. Enter. That's about right. And there is the highlighting for the top part of the bottom boot. Now, doing the bottom highlights, I did, well, all I did was I lowered the opacity of this dark layer here, like to 95 or whatever, 90. And this way I could see the foot, well, the map of the foot. And I just added the same thing. I went in and I added a new layer and changed it to color dodge, double clicked and unchecked the transparency button. And I just did a circle and then I Gaussian blurred it. And you're gonna just have, it's trial and error. Put them in and just think about what your foot would look like in real on your shoes. And you would have highlights in certain areas, like I have here along the side of the foot, around the right behind the toes, the bone on the ankle, and then the heel. And I just added them along the side, and then I put it in game and tried it. And this is how it ended up. And it may not be perfect, but it's good enough, and I think it looks pretty good. The highlights. There's no really, right or wrong way to do this. Just remember what your shoe looks like in real life and, do it like that. You can look at other people's work, how they do their highlights on their boots. Everybody does it different. I do it this way. I think it looks good. And okay, next would be the wrinkles. I only added a few wrinkles. I added them behind the boot here on the ankle, and then again behind the knees. And I also put wrinkles on the toe, a couple. And I will show you how I did those. Okay, let me just go ahead and find those wrinkles. Alright, so I did the wrinkles right above the highlight for the heel, because that's where they would be naturally. And I did those by simply making a new layer, getting my pen tool. Actually, let's go to the brush first. Brush should be at about 3. Let's do 4. Alright, then go to the little brush folder here. Check or click on the words shape dynamic. Make sure that this top control is set to pen pressure. Select black. D as in David. Okay. Now I'm going to get my pen tool and make a straight line right here. Then I'm going to right click, stroke path. make sure that that simulate pressure is checked. Do it twice. Then delete path. Okay, there's one line. Now I'm going to make a copy of that with Control J. I'm going to double click on it. Select color overlay. Make sure it's white. Hit OK. Then right click, rasterize, and then change that layer to overlay. Okay, now I'm going to lower the opacity of the black layer to about 50. Then select the white layer. Use my arrow keys, hit V as in Victor, then use your arrow keys to move it up. Okay, there's that. Now I'm going to select both layers, and I'm going to make 2 more copies. Okay. I'm going to merge this, change it to overlay, select the next 2, merge them, overlay, and then the last 2, merge, and overlay. Okay, now I'm going to move that one up to right about there. I'm going to select all 3. Then I'm going to go up here and distribute these vertically. Okay. Now we're going to Control T, and I'm going to squish them down so that the lines get thin. Hit OK, or checkbox. Now there are the 3 lines for behind the ankle. Now I'm going to move them over so that they are halfway off the side. And then I'm going to make a copy of these with Alt, arrow. There's a copy. I'm going to go ahead and move those to the other side. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to put it off to the side halfway. Okay, there are the wrinkles for the backs of the ankles. We do the same thing for the toe, but instead of doing them straight, they're going to be curved. And you can do this either with making your line curved first, like this, like this, and like this. Oops, not quite so curved. You would make your line like this, and then right click and stroke path, and it'll stroke the path this direction in the shape. Then do all the steps I just did for these on this one. And that will be for the toe. Oops, down here. I only did 2 for the toe. And if the lines don't seem dark enough or bright enough, just make copies of it and lower the opacity or whatever you think looks best. Again, here is the outcome of that. And I did the same thing for the lines on behind the knee, but I did it on the top part of the boot, obviously. Okay, and let's see. Now, with all of this together, okay, so here's the top part of the boot, and there's the bottom part of the boot, and this is the finished boot minus the heel. I'm going to do that next, and I'm going to make a third video for that part. This looks pretty good. So I hope you guys can follow this video okay. And thanks for watching. Bye-bye.